Right now, you feel like you are somewhere inside your life. It feels like you are inside your body, looking out at everything else. That feels completely obvious, so you never question it. But if you are really there, you should be able to find yourself, right? After everything happens in the garden, after the serpent speaks, after the thought is believed, and after hiding begins, the first thing God says is not a judgment. He asks a question. Where are you? Genesis 3:9. This is not a question about Adam's physical location. And it's not being asked because God lacks information. God's not searching the garden for a body. The question is exposing something much deeper about identity, because it's asking where Adam is now experiencing himself from. The fall is not that Adam moved away from God. The fall is that Adam began to experience himself as someone who could be away from God. That shift changes everything. The moment it happens, experience becomes organized around a center. It begins to feel as though there is an I located somewhere inside life, inside the body, behind the eyes, within the mind. But this location is never actually found. It is assumed. And once that assumption is believed, fear appears. Adam says, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself. Genesis 3:10. This response reveals the entire human condition. There is now a separate I. There is fear, there is exposure, there is hiding. Before this moment, there is no separate narrator standing apart from life. There is simply experience itself. Body, world, awareness, relationship, without division. Now experience is being interpreted from a position. And that position immediately feels vulnerable. A self that feels located also feels threatened. It can now be judged, rejected, abandoned, or lost. That is why hiding begins. But hiding is not only concealment, hiding is also construction. It is the attempt to create an identity that can be protected. The fig leaves are not just covering the body, they are the first self-image. And that movement never really stops. People hide behind strength, behind intelligence, behind spirituality, behind certainty, behind success, behind being good. Even authenticity can become another mask. Because the separate self survives through presentation. But God's question cuts underneath every mask. Where are you? Not, what did you do? Why did you fail? What do you believe? Where are you? Because if this separate self is real, it should be possible to find it. Right now, you assume there is someone hearing these words. So where is that someone? Look in the body and you find sensations. Look in the mind and you find thoughts. Look behind the eyes and you find more experience appearing. But the one who is supposed to be there is never actually found. This is why this question is so disruptive. It does not attack the self. It simply asks for its location. And the self cannot provide one. Scripture repeatedly points toward this. Paul says, "In him we live and move and have our being." Acts 17:28. That is not describing occasional connection. It is describing the condition in which all experience already takes place. David says, "Where shall I go from thy spirit? Or where shall I flee from thy presence?" Psalms 139:7. "If I ascend into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there." Psalms 139:8. There is nowhere outside the presence of God, which means exile cannot be actual separation. Exile is the experience of separation created by believing oneself to be separate. And that experience begins with a single assumption: I am here. Everything else grows from that. Fear, shame, control, striving, hiding. All of it depends on the belief that there is a separate center somewhere inside life. But if that center cannot be found, then what is all of that built upon? This is not something that can be resolved through philosophy or belief. It has to be looked at directly. Right now, thoughts are appearing, sensations are appearing, emotions are appearing. Even the sense of being a person is appearing. But what they appear to cannot itself be found as an object. It has no shape, no location, no boundary. Everything you call me appears. But what it appears to does not appear. This is the hidden turn in the question. The one who feels separate cannot be found apart from the feeling of separation. The one who feels ashamed cannot be found apart from thoughts and sensations of shame. The one who feels far from God cannot be found apart from the belief in distance. This is why the question matters so much. It does not give the mind a new belief. It exposes the structure of the old one. And once that structure is seen clearly, something begins to loosen. Not because the self is destroyed, because it is no longer being mistaken for what you are. So the question remains, where are you? And before the mind answers, look.